here real quick, probably just half hour or so, um, just to talk about everything in Bills land that's been going on since the draft. It's obviously been a very I don't know how to say it. It's very polarizing. No one's just kind of in the middle. So yeah, so we'll hop into that, and you'll get my thoughts on everything that's been going on since the draft.
The Mafia Members Podcast.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Alrighty, everyone. So obviously it's been a bit of a day for Bills fans. So first we'll talk about the draft, and I don't think it's fair to criticize the picks themselves, like the players, because we haven't seen them perform yet. We don't know if their game is going to transition into the NFL. I think the only thing really that you can do is criticize the strategy as of right now. We'll see how well these players perform. It's impossible to say that this is a good player right now. That's probably 2, 3, 4 years down the road, because like we saw, even especially with Josh Allen, first 2 years, you're like, I don't know, was this pick a bust? And now obviously he's turned into Josh Allen that we all know and love, and obviously that's a home run pick. So it's not even about waiting their first year. You need a little bit longer than that to kind of figure out who if the guy was a good pick or not. And that's just kind of the way I see it. So I don't think it's fair to say that this player sucks, we should have drafted this guy because this guy's better. We don't know any of that stuff yet. But what I think it is fair to discuss is the strategy, and what did Bean do going into the draft, and what Bean did going into the draft, and kind of the draft philosophy. Those kinds of things I think are fair to criticize or praise or comment on in general. What's up, Aiden? Aiden says you guys should have drafted wide receiver instead of multiple DTs. Not sure who was available, but my point stands. We will definitely be discussing that, Aiden. Thanks for commenting. But yeah, I think overall, if anybody has listened to me on any of these other shows that I've been on, or seen any of my tweets leading up to the draft, or spoken to me at all, I said defense, 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 defense. Grab a wide receiver later if you really want to. I'm fine with that, but it was all defense. And so for me personally, I'm thrilled with the draft. I gave it like a B plus A minus draft, because I do think that we should have maybe instead of in the 7th round, maybe in the 5th round, get a wide receiver and then complete the rest of the draft with defense. But I absolutely love getting all defense. That, to me, watching the Bills team, I just can't imagine watching the Bills team and thinking that the needs are on the defensive side of the ball. That to me doesn't make any sense. So for me, I agree with the strategy of going all defense, and I understand why people are mad at the strategy of going all defense, because lots of people said that he needs another wide receiver, he needs a target, he needs somebody to throw the ball to. The issue with that is, in my opinion anyways, we've tried that strategy. We've tried having the number one guy. We had Stephon Diggs be a number one wide receiver in the NFL, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL at his time in Buffalo, and didn't work out. Right? We prioritizing offense built us the offense that was just the 2024-2025 offense, which was the 30-point a game offense. Now is the time when it's time to prioritize defense. And for me, obviously I'm happy. For me, I would have liked to have gotten maybe a bigger defensive tackle. We got one in Deon Walker later on in the draft, but maybe a big boy up front would have been my top priority instead of the Maxwell Hairston pick. But also securing corner number 2 is a great pick in my eyes as well. So they obviously our issues were defense, and there's plenty of stats to go around about how we gave up the most amount of points that Kansas City ever scored this year. There's the in the Super Bowl, Kansas City or Philadelphia stopped Kansas City 9 times, and in our 4 playoff matchups, we've stopped Kansas City 9 times. So in one game, they did what we did in 4 games. There's lots of things that you can point at to be like, hey, this is the reason why we needed to prioritize defense, and not prioritizing wide receiver. Not prioritizing. We spent our first round pick on Keon Coleman last year. And the year before that was Kincaid and James Cook draft, and all of this draft capital has been spent around building up the offense. And I think it's totally fair to spend one draft and just fill in all the holes on defense. Leading up to the draft, one thing that Beane does really, really well, I think, is he doesn't go into the draft with a very big need or a big opening somewhere, right? So we knew that we needed pass rush help, and we knew that we needed help stopping the run. So he went out and signed Larry Ogunjobi, Joey Bosa, and Michael Hoyt. Now, you can argue how good those guys are, but it's a step up from what we had before. So now we're just trying to keep raising the floor of what we have on the team. And same can be said for the defensive backs, right? We bring in we re-signed Trey White. That's now the floor of the cornerback 2 position is now Trey White. And drafting and getting players in the backfield, defensive backs, is just going to keep raising that floor. Same for any of the other picks, Hancock and the other guys, right? We bring in Derek Forrest, and we have re-sign Hamlin. We have Rapp and Bishop. That's the floor of the safety room. And now we're just trying to keep elevating that by bringing people in. Heaven forbid somebody gets injured. Now we have a guy who's here who can step in and help keep the flow of the team going. So overall, I loved the strategy behind the draft, and I think it's fair to say that our defense is our defense is going to be, or now needs to be, a lot better because of what we did. Like I said, we can debate if we should have taken a wide receiver in the 5th round as opposed to taking one when we did it in the 7th round, but that's not going to make the impact that we need it to make, right? Our top priority was fixing the defensive side of the football, And so with your first few picks, you're going to be on the defensive side of the football, and that's going to determine how the rest of your draft kind of goes, right? So now you're in a position where you're sitting there round 5, you're like, well, is this wide receiver 6, 7 special teams guy going to impact our team more, or would we rather build some depth in the picks that we've already made? Obviously, we're not going to, you go to camp with 90 some guys, right? And it's a 53-man roster. So not everybody is going to be on the team. Some guys are practice squad, some guys are straight up cut. And, that's just the reality of the NFL. So I think it makes, in order to get the most out of them, which is what they're pretty good at, Buffalo, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, they're pretty good at creating that competition within a room, and then we just pick the best guys that are available. We had that last year in the running backs we weren't sure if we were going to keep Frank Gore Jr. or if it was going to be Darrington Evans. What's going to happen? So we just bring them all into camp. You guys fight it out. So that's what we're doing at safety. That's what we're doing at corner. And that's what we're doing on the defensive line, which was our 3 biggest needs on the team. So obviously those first 4 picks are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And now we're sitting there in the 5th round being like, I think I would rather, or what else do we need? Well, okay, sure. We'll get a tight end who can block. We can step that tight end 3 spot up from Quentin Morris. Okay, perfect. I like that play. Okay. You're not in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. You're not deciding the future of your franchise. You're just looking to infill and get guys and create that competition for a roster spot, because that ultimately is what's going to make the team better. So overall, 100% agree with the strategy. But like I said, going wide receiver first would have been crazy to me, because I don't think that's, if we came back with the exact same defense, we'd be in the exact same spot. The offense is returning 100% as is, except that we've upgraded Mac Hollins to Joshua Palmer, which I think, in my opinion, is an upgrade. It's not. He's not. I'm not trying to act like he's a top 10 wide receiver in the league or anything, but I think he's better than Mac Hollins. So, like I said, addressing the need before the draft even happens is what Beane does. And now we just get to kind of fill in the roster. So I don't think it would have aided to your question and to your point. I don't think it would have made sense in drafting a wide receiver instead of multiple defensive tackles, because I think we're trying to build up that defensive line, defensive tackle, edge rusher spot. We saw, because lots of Bills fans also will say, well, on the last play of the game, it was an Allen throw that bounced off of Kincaid's hands, which is a fair point. But except the reason why it was a poor throw on a last scramble was because of the pressure from the Kansas City defense. If we could get that kind of pressure on Patrick Mahomes and any of these other quarterbacks that will play in the playoffs, maybe we get some of those bounces to go our way. And, maybe that's what seals a victory for us. 13-second game. Allen walks off the field with 13 seconds left after just scoring a touchdown and never sees the ball again, and we lose. Like, that's not an offensive problem. There's no way that's an offensive problem, which leads me to my next point of the outcome of these drafts, of this draft, I mean, is the pressure that is now on Sean McDermott. There was already tons after the way last season ended. There was already tons of pressure on Sean McDermott. I have said in the past that I was was on the fire Sean McDermott train. And then last year, I guess you could say I kind of felt like he earned his way back, at least into my good books at least. And I thought, okay, good. Now he's not proven himself, but like he doesn't deserve to get fired after last season. That's for sure. That was one of the best seasons that we've had in recent history, recent memory. But now with this draft, that pressure that was there 2 seasons ago when everybody was saying fire McDermott, that pressure is right back to that level because now he has no more excuses. Now we've invested into the defense, which is supposed to be his thing and which is supposed to be his specialty. And we all know that he can coach up and get the best out of the guys on the defensive side of the ball. So now the pressure is just 100% on McDermott. And that's what this draft has done in my eyes. It's been, okay, we've built up the defense. Here's a bunch of guys on defense. Let's see how you make out. And so I hope that the kind of the stuff that we've seen from McDermott already in, like I said, coaching up the defensive backs and getting the best out of these linebackers and, being able to really get the best out of a subpar on paper roster on the defensive side, getting the most out of them, I think will be interesting to see that now that we've given you all the tools that you need, now go out and prove it. And now you don't have the excuses of, maybe not having all the best guys because we've been drafting on the offensive side of the football forever. So now it's really going to boil down to what can McDermott do. And I think that if this year ends anything like it did last season, he's toast. I don't see it. I hate the Super Bowl or bust narrative. Nothing drives me more crazy in sports because it's like impossible to win the championship of your sport. Whether you're talking hockey or football, whatever, basketball, it's incredibly, incredibly hard to win the championship. And so I hate the narrative of the Super Bowl or bust. But this is as close to that as you can get, because if we go out there and our defense costs us another playoff game against Kansas City Chiefs, see ya. Sorry, there's no defending that at this point. And I think he's been kind of given enough chances at this point, and it'll be, hey, listen, man, we've built you a roster, a really, really good roster, a roster that is going to give you 12 to 13 wins in the regular season, and you haven't been able to win it in the big game or call up the right play when it matters the most. And so I think this season it's kind of all on the line for McDermott. Josh Allen has kind of really spoiled the fan base for sure, because we've now gotten used to winning the division and winning playoff games. We've kind of gotten used to that as fans, and we've completely forgotten about the drought years. Not actually, but when we're talking about the team, we're like, okay, what is going on here? Like we're getting impatient now because we've had this Lamborghini parked in the driveway just waiting to go, and he hasn't really been able to get the credit that he deserves. So massive year for McDermott because of how this draft played out. And then one last thing we'll touch on before I get out of here. Like I said, it's probably only going to be a half an hour. I just wanted to touch quickly on Brandon Beane this morning on WGR radio. I don't live in Buffalo, so I've never listened to WGR. So my comment is not about, because there's lots of back and forth about how they've been pushing this wide receiver narrative, and he comes on and just kind of, bitches at them for it. But I think, like I said, I think that um, Bean has built this team. Josh Allen has spoiled us as fans, and we don't take into account how hard it is to build a team that's a Super Bowl contender every single year. And when all you hear is negatives about, if he would have went in there and traded up and got everybody and just got every wide receiver that we could think of in the regular season or in the playoffs, something would happen and we'd be like, well, how come he didn't draft any defensive players? And so I get how hard it is and all the work that he's done and what he's built in Buffalo, and he still gets hated on. And I understand him not like freaking out about that, and him like having enough and being fed up with it, because it is hard to do what he's doing. Now granted, so that was my kind of initial reaction. I was like, you know what, I love this. I like him standing 10 toes down with the decisions that he made. I can agree with that. I do that at work too. If I want to fail because of my decisions. I don't want to fail because I listen to outside noise or something like that. If I'm going to get in trouble, then I'm going to make the decision. I'm not going to be listening to outside noise. I'll fall on my own sword. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So I appreciate that aspect of it, but there is kind of a side where it's like, this is also what you sign up for when you become a general manager of a professional sports team. You sign up for the criticism. If you are building a team and it's not working out, then the fans also who pay their money, and every time we talk about the Bills, we say we did this, we did that. What are we doing? We put the money into the team. We feel like we have some say in what happens. So that's the part that I kind of don't agree with, is the taking it out on the fans. Like, hey bro, this is kind of what you sign up for when you become the general manager of the team. Fans aren't going to like every single one of your moves. Fans aren't going to agree with everything that you do. You have to develop a little bit of a thicker skin. But like I said, overall, I think I would like I'm happy that he did it, because then it shows me that he's, like I said, he's standing firm in what he thinks. And this strategy was what he thinks. This strategy was what he wanted to do, and he's not backing down. And I like that, because now it gives me confidence in we already had all the confidence in the world in Bean, but now it gives me more confidence to be like, okay, he's passionate about what he's doing and he's making these decisions and he's all in on this. So that part I liked. I think maybe there's a way you can, because you are the face of the team, face of the franchise, like front office wise. When people think of Buffalo, they think of Josh Allen, McDermott, Bean, and like that's what we as fans think of. So I think being in that role and being the general manager, you might have to present it a little bit differently, but I also don't mind Bean doing that. And especially if like what I've heard is true, and these guys really were just like pushing this wide receiver, and calling him out on it all the time, then even more respect to get on the radio and be like, hey, you guys are wrong. That's fine. In my opinion, they are wrong too. If you were pushing we need the wide receiver narrative, you are, in my opinion, wrong, because like we spent the first 20 minutes talking about, the issues were on the defensive side of the ball. Our offense is going to regress. Like, it's impossible to keep up with what they did last year. That's just natural. It's you can't keep up that level consistently for very long. So our offense is going to take a step back. So naturally, you also now need to make sure that your defense is going to be stopping more points, because we're not going to be averaging 30 points a game like we were last year. So now you have to make sure that the other team doesn't average 30 points a game scored on you, right? So it's just doing what he's got to do. You know what I mean? And he made those decisions and he stands by them. And for me as a fan, I can respect it. I can respect him getting mad. Ideally, I would have had him presented in a different way, but I mean, it is what it is. He spent the past 2 months putting together this whole draft board, this whole draft strategy, scouting guys, doing everything, going here, going there, pro days, combine, everything, and just for a bunch of fans to be like, well, you didn't do this. Like, okay, come on, man. Like, I get it. We're all pushing the same way. We're all pushing for that Super Bowl at the end of the day. This is the best way to do it, in my opinion, obviously in Bean's opinion as well. So yeah, so I think, we just got to have faith in Bean. He's turned this franchise completely around spun it around on its head. And I think he has earned a little bit more respect than what some of the fans. And by the sounds of it, like I said, I never listened to WGR. I don't live in Buffalo, but from the sounds of it, what they were saying on WGR, he might deserve a little bit more respect than what he was given. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Just wanted to pop on here and give my 2 cents on the draft. Yeah, give me you guys. Thanks a lot for listening. Aiden, thanks for the comment. Anybody else has anything they want to discuss with me? You know where to find me, at Mafia Members Pod. YouTube is Mafia Members Podcast. Go check me out there. And as always, go Bills. And I'll check in with you guys later. Peace.